I want to share with you how learning a new language changed my life. I used to be super skinny, undisciplined, and had too many bad habits until I decided to learn a language by myself. I'm going to show you how this affected my life for the better, taking me from looking like this to this, boosting my confidence, improving my habits, and becoming a healthier person. This skill has opened my mind in ways that were beyond my comprehension, but the process of achieving it was packed with so many hurdles. It's been more than 2 years and a half since I started, and the lessons I've learned have been more valuable than the language itself. In my first video, I mentioned that I started learning a second language at a very short age, taking a basic course and an intermediate one. But one thing I didn't mention was that I almost took a third one. This happened back in 2020 during COVID. It had been less than 3 weeks until they closed the academy. Technically, those first 3 weeks were a review of the lessons they had taught me before. That's why I didn't mention it, because basically I didn't learn anything new. I was able to take my first course thanks to my grandma. She was a teacher and she knew how important it was for someone to learn a second language. She had a great vision for my life. She was constantly trying to make me as smart as possible, buying me books, courses, cognitive games, even homeschooling me. But at the age of 19, I had become something completely different to what she had raised me for. Thanks to the bad situation, I had to flee my country at the age of 16. I kept going back and forth from different countries. Along with the problems in my family, I didn't have an economical, emotional, nor mental stability. Life had become gray for me. I lost hope. The anger had consumed my entire life, becoming a dark and numb person. I forgot about my roots and the principles I was taught as a child. For instance, I thought I lost everything in life, falling more and more into an existential void, without knowing that learning a new language was going to be one of the key turning points in my life. I know it sounds a bit radical. A language itself won't change your life. I'm talking about the process of learning a skill, a new skill. In the process is where the magic lies. I wanted to get out of the depressing state I had put myself in, and learning English was one of the ways to do it. When I started, I had no clue on how to do it, and the idea of doing it by myself seemed too scary. So I did my research, and after listening to some people who had done it, I thought it was possible, but I knew it was going to be difficult. Not because it's a difficult language, because it really is not, but because of how fucked my mentality was. I knew it would take a lot from me. I had too many things to change in my life, starting from clearing the mental clutter, regaining focus, fixing my habits and discipline. Learning a language by yourself is very demanding. It requires mental clarity, yeah, but it's actually easy if you dedicate yourself. It doesn't take that much time. One of the analogies that helped me to understand this was that I needed to absorb the language, not to learn about it. Let me ask you something. How did we learn our native languages? The first months of our lives, we began by babbling, saying things like dada, mama, papa, and things like that. The first year, that babble starts taking shape. We say things like mom, dad, and it sounds more like real words. At the age of 2, we add basic sentences when we say things like want food, more milk, and we even use basic expressions like happy or sad. Between 2 to 3 years, we start using the grammar when we say things like I walk in, I'm eat, I don't watch movies. Maybe not perfectly, though enough to communicate a message or a need that we have. Between 3 to 4, we have the ability to say longer sentences, and we start bombarding our parents with thousands of questions in a row. Between 4 to 5, we add more complexity. We can hold basic conversations. Our pronunciation is more clear. We can express our feelings clearly. In most cases, when we turn 5 or 6, we are already fluent. We can communicate with people, maybe not with an expanded vocabulary, though enough to communicate our ideas, to communicate a problem, to describe a situation, to tell stories. Think about it. We are a 5 or 6-year-old kid, and we already can speak and understand the language without even knowing how to read or write, without even having a notion about the grammar of a mother tongue. That's crazy, and it made it so obvious for me. It made it look like a piece of cake. It made me feel more motivated because I was no longer focused on the tedious grammar. I understood that I needed to develop my pronunciation skills, to sharpen my ears, so that I could understand and say basic sentences. The moment I did that, my English exploded. In one hand, it looks easy, but it's also easy to quit as well, especially as a grown-up person. Yeah, learning a language as a child is easy because you have all the people around you using the language every single day, the whole day. You have your parents, family, and friends teaching you words non-stop. As adults, we put ourselves down with all these negative thoughts. We kill our confidence and we get afraid of making the mistakes that unfortunately we need to go through to get better. That's what really makes learning a language difficult. At that moment, I understood what I needed to do. There is where all the changes started, not only with the language, but with my life as a whole. I started planning my daily routine, something I had never done. I created a system that would allow me to immerse myself in the language, to gain the confidence I needed. My primary objective was to become fluent as fast as possible, and I wasn't willing to stop until I did it. I knew it would take a lot of effort to stay consistent because I wasn't close to be a consistent person. I wanted to find a way to not burn out in the process, to not get bored, to not give up, to study as much as I could. I locked myself in a daily 12 to 18 hours grind. From the moment I woke up until I went to bed, I was practicing and consuming material in the language, maintaining balance with daily exercise, meditation, yoga, eating healthier, grounding myself, and deleting unhealthy habits from my life, such as low-frequency music, dumb scrolling, social media, sugar, you name it. I wanted to stay as clean as possible to absorb as much information as possible. After a couple of months, I started to notice some changes in my physique. I was more focused, my mind was sharper, I felt healthier and more driven. I started to feel alive and grateful for my life again. I know this is not the case for most people. Dedicating 12 hours of your day to learning a language may sound a bit extreme. In my case, I was able to do it because I had an independent job and had the time flexibility. But if you still think that 1 hour a day is enough, you are wrong. But 12 hours a day may sound like a delusion for most people. And yeah, somehow, sometimes you need to become a bit delusional about these things. But this is not a fancy thing. Most people romanticize the term lock in, but locking in requires sacrifice. Sacrifices friend, family, time, energy, and having fun. Most people complain that they don't have time to do these things. But I'm sure if you delete certain habits from your day, you will find at least 4 or 6 hours to achieving your goals. I was going through this 12 hours a day grind while having in mind that by the end of the year I had to become fluent, but it didn't happen as I expected. By December 2023, I had practiced so much that one would think there was no way I didn't become fluent. The problem was that I still had some limitations. I was mostly practicing by myself. I couldn't find people to talk to. I tried with different apps, but the problem was not finding the people. The problem was that the problem I was trying to solve became the problem. Let me explain to you. I was trying to get rid of the people are gonna make fun of me mentality and to build the confidence in the language. After 5 or 6 months of constant practice, I saw that was the perfect moment to start talking to native people, but that was something I had never done. In my mind and by myself, I was crushing it, but I couldn't hold a long conversation with a native. I tried, but I failed. I thought it shouldn't be so hard. Come on, I have been practicing a lot, and now I was having the same doubt again. I hadn't learned anything, I thought. Why if I practice a lot? I knew I had to practice with native people, but now I was afraid to talk to them because I thought that they were going to make fun of me. I couldn't just come back to talk by myself in front of the mirror. That needed to change. In January 2025, I went on a hike with a friend of mine. After 2 hours of walking, we were tired and sweat, so we decided to stop on a viewpoint to observe the mountains. With the nature surrounding us plus the sun hitting on our faces, we were kinda chilling out. Then I saw a guy approaching to us, a tall, white, blonde, and blue-eyed guy. Coincidentally, he stopped on the same spot. And me, without knowing who he was or where he was from, I said, "Hey, ¿qué hay, compa? ¿Cansado o qué?" And he replied like, "Oh, no, no, no." That no was enough for me to assume that he was from abroad. So I automatically said, "You don't speak Spanish, right?" And he looked at me like, "What's going on here? Is this guy trying to rob me or what?" But then he replies nicely, And he said, oh no, I don't speak Spanish. And then we continued going up together. And we talked about everything, about life, about family, countries, culture, everything for over 30 minutes. Whereas in my house, whenever I tried to practice with someone, I couldn't hold a conversation for over 2 minutes. By the time he left, I was normal, like it was something normal in my life, something common. It wasn't until my friend turned around in awe and he said, Mierda. He was so surprised about our conversation that he couldn't believe it. And it hit me there, like I just realized that I had been talking to that guy for over 30 minutes. And I told him back, ¿Qué pasó? I couldn't believe it. From that moment, I understood that all I needed to do was to let go from people's expectations, that all the effort was finally paying off. This process did not only teach me a language, it was a life lesson. It showed me that there was more behind the walls of limitations I had built for myself, more possibilities. It made me believe again. I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, a ray of hope. But that was just the beginning.